Independent show last show. Shout out to Ricky with the jersey.
You know how long he been wearing that jersey, man? You know how many times I don't watch games where he lost in that jersey? That's why he wore it on the show. He knew what time it was. But I mean, losing games and losing big games and losing coordinators sound like it's a thing. Now, if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you like losing coordinators. That's a thing to us. Like, we used to that. That's just what a top 5 coach do. He lose coordinators and still find ways to get back. Now, can Dan Campbell do the same? I mean, this is how you all know I'm going through some things back here. You know, I only got a nickname for these. We just going with the titles. I'm saving all my jokes for next week when people make it to the Super Bowl. That's when the titles come back. We gotta see what's going on. Things are acting strange. But just days after the NFC top seed Lions was stunned by JD5 and crew, the offensive coordinator Ben Johnson said, "You know what? I'm out. I'm going to Chicago." And then the defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn said, "I'm out too. I'm going to the New York Jets." And some people would say, did Ben Johnson even have an interview? It's just like he picked up the phone and was like, "I'm already gone." The same thing happened with Aaron Glenn. It seemed like the Jets had their mind set on him. But to lose two coordinators right after having one of historic seasons with the Detroit Lions, you know, the winning has come from that. Fellas, what do you think is next for Dan Campbell and the Lions? Dave?
I feel like they're going to do the same thing Kyle Shanahan kind of sort of did last year. I think they're going to hire somebody in-house. I think they have a guy as a defensive coordinator that they're already interested in, who they're talking to, who's going to become their DC. They also just lost another coach on their team. They lost Antoine Randall L., who was the wide receivers coach. He's now the wide receiver. He now leaves and goes to the Bears, so that's where he is now. So that's pretty much 3 people and a coach that they've lost so far. But I think it remains to be seen. I think he's gonna definitely have to find a good offensive coordinator to be able to allow Jared Goff and, you know, Sonic and Knuckles to be able to do what they need to do on the ground, and then having Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta to be able to get that offense involved. The offensive line is pretty much shored up with Penei Sewell, so I don't think they have any worries there. But the court, this is definitely going to tell exactly how good of a coach Dan Campbell is, because we have heard, you know, by people on this show and other places that Dan Campbell is a top 5 coach. You know, he makes a lot of gutsy calls, especially when it comes to 4th down calls. So we have that going for him as well. So now we got to see exactly what he's going to do when he lost what made his team so good. Because Aaron Glenn helped that defense be exactly what it was with all the energy that they had. I believe they had maybe 9 to 11 people, 9 to 11 starters got injured on the defense this season, including their star defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson. So he was out. I think Terry Arnold had got hurt before. Carlton Davis is another guy that I think they signed this offseason who ended up getting hurt. It's a bunch of guys on this defense that got hurt. That was definitely one of the big reasons why the defense was good. And we saw it at the end, even though their offense was still powerful enough to be able to score, but their defense gave up a lot of points in the end. If that defense was healthy, who knows where they might actually be in the NFC Championship right now. But we don't know that because they had all those injuries and they haven't been able to necessarily really stop anybody. And like this comment right here said by Carl, that they had about 18 players on injured reserve, and that's on offense and defense. There was a point where David Montgomery was actually hurt as well, so we had to worry about that. I think Jameson Williams maybe have missed a game or two, but like I said, this tell you exactly how good Dan Campbell is as a coach, because he is going to have to go and find 2 other coordinators to get that team back to where they were. This is the Lions' best regular season they've ever had in their history. They went 15-2 this year with the number 1 seed in the NFC. It's the first time that's happened to them in their entire franchise history. There's 2 other coaches in the NFC who's had those same issues: Kyle Shanahan and Nick Sirianni. Kyle Shanahan has had a defensive coordinator switch almost, at least for the last 4 years, has been switched every single season. He had Robert Saleh, he had DeMeco Ryans, he had Steve Wilkes, and then he just had Nick Sorensen. And it can show you exactly how much that can change for you depending on who your defensive coordinator is. Because 3 of the last 4 years, we've been in the NFC Championship game. But if you look at this season, we missed the playoffs altogether because we didn't have the right coordinator in there. And he also lost his offensive coordinator. Remember, Mike McDaniels was his OC. He's gone. Bobby Slowick was also his offensive coordinator. He went to the Texans with D'Amico Ryans. So this is going to tell you exactly how good his coach is. Nick Sirianni, we ought to know he lost Shane Steichen. He lost Shane Steichen and what's the other coach's name?
Jonathan Gannon.
And lost John again. He lost both of them in the same season. And then last year it was again. It flipped over again. And then this year it flipped again. They had 2 other coordinators they had to switch to this season. So, and you see where they are. They're in the NFC Championship game. So this is going to tell you if Dan Campbell really is a top 5 coach or if he benefited off his coordinators. So we're just going to wait and see. I think there's still some offensive coordinators out there that he maybe can go after, or at least a DC. I think the Bears old coach who just got fired, he was a good defensive coordinator. You got Brandon Staley who's out there, I guess you can give him an opportunity as a defensive coordinator, along with Nick Sorensen. Steve Wilkes is still out there, so you still got some guys out there that you can hire. But the thing is, what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I like Dave said, it's going to show how good of a coach he is. Now, I think he'll be good though. Like you said, we saw Nick Sirianni go through the same thing, and part of being a coach is picking the talent, right? That's part of being a good coach, and both your coordinators leaving is always a good sign. That means that you're doing something good, right? And one thing about Dan Campbell, he built a culture, he built a foundation in Detroit. And then when you listen to both coaches talk about Dan Campbell, both of them feel like that they'll be fine. Ben Johnson said he'll be fine within the next 3 years or so because they still have a talented roster. I know Tomo gonna hit on the quarterback side when he talks, but Tomo mentioned in the chat like this also says something about golf. Golf will be tested, but I think both coordinators, Dan Campbell is a coach's coach. You know what I mean? He's a leader of men. He's not just like a play caller. He's a guy that he demands respect in the whole room from everybody. You see how good of a leader. If you ever hear Aaron Glenn talk, that dude is a leader too. And he got his ears open for Dan Campbell, and then you got Ben Johnson, the whiz kid guy. So here are some of the candidates. I want to say that from the Detroit Press. All right, that's what they said. The Lions offensive coordinator candidates. You got the Lions offensive line coach Hank Fraley, right, which is a good thing. He actually stayed, so he's going to be a top candidate for the job. The Lions pass game coordinator Tanner Engstrand. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, my God, right? But Lions assistant head coach and running back coach Scotty Montgomery. Right, Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon and former Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach Greg Olsen. All right, so those are the candidates for the offensive coach. I'm pretty sure Hank Fraley might get that job. I'm not gonna lie. And then defensively, the top candidate right now is Larry Foote, the linebacker coach for the Buccaneers. He's from Detroit. You know what I mean? He also played. I think he played for the Lions too. And he was actually on the roster that won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady as a coach. So he has that Super Bowl experience. Then you got the Lions linebacker coach, Kelvin Shepard, Lions defensive back, coach Deshea Townsend. I'm like, you, Tom, in the red corner. Jacksonville Jaguars defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, and Denver Broncos defensive back coach, Jim Leonard. All right, Leonard. So, I think Kelvin Shepard or Larry Foote, Detroit native, like I said, Super Bowl champions and head coach. But I think he'll be straight, man. We'll see what happens. But next year's gonna tell a lot about that, Campbell.
Like I said, and I agree with both my brothers on this one. I think it's more so not Dan Campbell. That's why I had to throw out Jared Goff, because again, a good offensive coordinator and your quarterback sticking is like a diamond in the rough. And remember who he came from with the Rams. Remember what the running joke was? Oh, he had to read them to play like 3 seconds until the offense the mic went off. So now him linking up with Ben Johnson, it was like, well, look what Jared Goff did. He broke history in one of the games. What he went 18 for 18 with completions, and you just look at how the Lions offense will move. Some people wrote Jared Goff off. Remember, we were doing maybe was it this year or maybe next year or last year? We were doing a top 5 in the NFC because once all the quarterbacks was left, he was like, well, Dak the oldest quarterback, so you kind of got to put him up there. And he was like, well, y'all forgetting about Jared Goff? Like he can still ball. So he was kind of written off, kind of like with Matt Stafford as well. But when it comes down to losing an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator that kind of was on this historic run, that might be tough because one of them went to your division. It's not like Ben Johnson went to the NFC South. He's right there with the Bears. So you're going to have to play them twice. And him saying what he's saying about Dan Campbell being the leader of men, they still going to be a good team in the next couple of years.
I know you said
like a little shot. I'm like, the next couple of years? What you mean? Like, we ain't going to be good next year because you left? I see what you did there, player. And recently, shout out to Davey Schefter. He posted that they got Antoine Randall, right? I think he just went to the Bears. I don't want to say it, but Al Harris going up there to the Bears to be, oh my goodness, man, we losing everybody. But Al Harris going up to the Bears too to help on the defense as being one of their secondary coaches. So he building the staff over there. Another team that also lost both their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator was the Cincinnati Bengals. And one of them went to the Commanders. That was Jay Gruden, and then Mike Zimmer went off to Minnesota. I know that name hunts you right now, Joe, but you in good times right now.
Yeah. Over Jay Gruden.
But this goes back to another thing too, Dave. When you started your soliloquy, when you were talking about how some people had Dan Campbell in their top 5 coaches, I was one of the people that swapped Nick Sirianni out for Dan Campbell. Same. And now I want to say it's a tie. I'm gonna say it's a tie for me at that 5th spot because to go back and really look at what Nick Sirianni was able to do, losing all of those coordinators and still finding ways to win. Some people would tie to the GM saying, well, he's bringing in good talent. But again, somebody has to coach these players. I've seen teams where they put them on the field, they had the best of the best, and they still look bad. So I'm gonna say I miss the Jay Gruden. I miss it too. Of course. Miss a lot of things on that old Washington team, but it's in now. So. But to look up here and say you lost 2 coordinators after going to the Super Bowl, found a way to get back into the playoffs. Yes, they stumbled, but you still found a way to make the playoffs. And then a year later, look where you at now with brand new coaching staff. So again, that says something. Says a lot about a head coach itself, and it kind of makes a little argument for what Kev was saying about Mike Tomlin. If you want to fight back on Mike Tomlin, you're talking about somebody who's losing coordinators and adding pieces and learning new offenses and stuff like that, and still finding ways to get championship games, not just a wild card. I mean, that starts a debate there. But we more so speaking about the Lions. I think they'll be okay. You'll find a way to bounce back. But I think for me, it's not Dan Campbell because he can find a diamond in the roughs when it comes to coordinators and building the staff because he did it the year before, and with all the ex-players that he brought over. This goes to more. How is Jared Goff going to perform? What players are actually going to go to the Jets? Or what players are going to go follow their coordinators? Because players follow coordinators sometimes too. So we'll see.
Yeah, I want to name all the guys, all the coordinators that are available right now. Whether the Lions interviewed them or not. You got, like Joe said, Hank Fraley. You got Darrell Bevell, who's the quarterback coach for the Dolphins. Kevin Kogler, tight end coach for the Falcons. Clint Kubiak. We mentioned the Kubiak, so he was interviewed on the 13th. You got Charles London, who's the quarterback coach for the Falcons. You got Bobby Slow, like I named, Marcus Brady, Thomas Brown, Tommy Rees, Mark Brunell, who's the quarterback coach for the Lions right now, so he could easily be put in that position as well. Mm-hmm. Nick Caley, who's the tight end coach for the Rams.
Wasn't that y'all quarterback at one point, Joe?
Mark Brunell?
Mark Brunell, yeah. Mm-hmm. Scott Turner. I think he was the quarterback. He was the quarterback.
Tied a consecutive completions in a row.
Mm-hmm. He was the last quarterback. Before Jaden Daniels, he was the last quarterback to win the playoff game for them.
It was funny because with that completion record streak, he got an incompletion, and then they called pass interference. I was like, oof. And then the next one, he tied
then you got Noah Pauley, who's the wide receivers coach for Iowa State. I'm hearing his name a lot. Thomas Brown, Byron Leftwich, who's from Washington D.C. He actually went to my high school, Anacostia High School. Grant Udinski, I don't know who this guy is. I think that's who you named earlier. I don't know, Jeff, but I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Those are the offensive coordinators. Defense, you got, well, he already has a job now. Lou Anarumo, who was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, but now he got hired for the Colts. He's the Colts defensive coordinator now. Derek Ansley, Grady Brown, Matt Eberflus. That's what I was talking about. Matt Eberflus is a good is actually a good defensive coordinator. Probably better than he is a head coach.
Yeah. For the people that's watching, my face was for the guy before. Like the coach, sure they want him.
Nah, Lou good. I think he just needed new scenery, man.
I mean, last 2 years the defense hasn't been that good, but you're right. He might need new scenery.
We like Joe Witt.
Continue, Dave.
I know all your coaches.
I know, man. It's crazy, bro.
Wink Martindale, defensive coordinator for Michigan. I'm hearing his name a lot as well. That would actually be a good hire if he's able to hire his guy, Wink Martindale. That would be great for Dan Campbell. Carl might not like that, but hey. Dennis Allen, who's still out there, even though I said that he might be a head coach for the Cowboys.
Stop saying that name, Dave. He's
still out there. He's still out there. Durante Jones, who's the defensive pass coordinator for the Vikings. Aubrey Pleasant, DeMarcus Covington, not Al Golden, Patrick Graham, and everyone else Joe had already named.
Yeah, I think defensively cool to go out. I think offensively they should stay in house.
Yeah, especially I vote for Mark Brunell, honestly, or the passing game coordinator. What was his name? Tanner Engstrand.
Yeah, Mark
Tanner E.
Yeah, never forget.
I think somebody. I would like to see somebody give Steve Wilkes a chance.
As a defensive coordinator, I would like to see that too. He deserves a second chance.
I would like to see him get another chance as a DC.
Who?
Steve Wilkes.
Okay, Steve Wilkes. Yeah, man, I remember this high school, 13-0, fourth quarter, Mark Brunell, San Antonio Moss 2 times in a row, 14-13, game over.
Y'all having a moment, boy.
You remember that, Tomo? Remember that?
I remember because we was talking about it at the draft, and as we talking about it at the draft, look who walked in. Yeah, I was just about to say, man, forget him. And
he said this, and he was like, "No, you're not about to do that now with me here."
Man,
shout out to San Antonio Moss, man.
It's crazy we the same height. I should have actually. I probably would have had a career in the NFL.
Crazy how you be a receiver cooking.
You know,
y'all say hi.
If I never blew out my knee, that's what they be saying, right? But let's have a little bit more fun, man. I mean, we went from